G'day, folks. BJ and Game Day back again for another week. As always, you got Brent and Bogan. Bogan, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm alright, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, good, mate. Good, mate. Still no Joshy this week, bud.
Yeah, mate. Sorry, I just realised I still got my fan on. Just let me go and turn that off. Good start.
As always.
Um,
Look, another
talk to chat for a
pre-season
bit.
show, mate. We've got hookers and halves. We're going to do a bit of a dive tonight. You know, have a little bit of a look at some of the options. I think you'll chuck up some of the upper echelon, the highest price guys, but we'll also have a bit of a chat about some of those, mid to cheap sort of guys, and talk about some options in the spine. A couple of vital components in the spine.
Sorry about that. Doesn't sound like I'm in a wind tunnel now. At least it shouldn't, hopefully.
Welcome to anyone who's joining us. We'll keep an eye on the chat. If you're back, welcome back. If you're new, welcome. As you can see up on the screen there, you got the group code, so jump in to that 692946. Give us a run this year. Starting to get a few in there, Bugs.
Yeah, that's good. We'll be also looking to release the code for the BJ and GameDay All-In League in one of the future episodes, so keep on tuning in for that.
Yeah, and over the next couple of weeks, we'll also jump into the other positions as well. We'll probably just tag team on a couple as we are tonight, and round out all the positions.
I'm going to leave the expertise up to you and just control the control the show.
Sounds good. So
anything been happening?
Not much, mate. Just starting to get close now. I think it's about 3 weeks or so now until the season starts. So not long to go now. It's starting to get exciting. Starting to start to get real.
Probably the big news over the week is Cameron McInnes. He's gone for the season, so a lot of people are going to have to change their teams. Or you can keep him, but he's going to be fucking useless for the rest of the season.
Yeah, massive news, wasn't it? I think I don't know how many people had him in the team. I don't know what his ownership percentage was, but there's some rumours going around the Sharks are trying to get an early release, and a bit of speculation how many minutes he might be playing, what position, and that sort of thing. But it won't matter now. He's done the ACL, so ruptured ACL, gone for the season. Pretty massive, unfortunately.
And Averillo as well. Was it an MCL elbow?
Yeah, something like that. So
he's gone for 8 weeks as well. I know I had him in my team. I know a lot of people would probably have him in their team. Do you keep someone who's going to be on the bench for the first 8 weeks, or?
I think someone like Averillo, he was, a strong possibility to be quite a few sides. I think with his price and where you could pick him up in the centre wing, there's like plenty of guys around that, 200 to 300, mid 300 price that were all in the mix. So I think now you got to get off him. Yeah. There's no point sitting on him. There might be now a bit of competition for his spots. There's a bit of speculation. Burton might be on the way to the Dogs. That's neither here nor there yet. Whether that eventuates or not, we'll see.
And that's the thing. We're only a couple of weeks out from season start, and there's still a lot of speculation about players moving around, and obviously, I do have a chuckle at the way that Cam Smith is torturing the press by doing absolutely nothing, but spotted training at a local park up in the Gold Coast.
Yeah, mate, very interesting. I think today it was. There was something that made social media, and he had some boots on, a few footies at an oval not far from Titans' home ground there. So, yeah.
So, rumours hotting up. He's signing with the Titans. I keep saying he's going to do a Brady and go for that championship with a minnow team, just to show how good he is. But I don't know. With McCulloch moving on, is there any possibility he might show up at the Broncos?
I mean, it's always a possibility. There's just so much speculation going around at the moment. But, I mean, I don't know if the Titans train behind closed doors, but I imagine if he's showing up to training anywhere, it's going to be all over the news. So
the Titans are trolling because they said they held a press conference, but it was announced that their stadium sponsorship was continuing for a few more years. So I suppose we'll see over the next few days, but it is interesting that the bloke was training with half a dozen footies by himself down at a local park doesn't seem like there's act of a bloke who's retiring.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It's a bit of a circus. Obviously, Smith will know what he's doing. I imagine Melbourne will know, and whoever else that might be involved is be well aware of it by now. It's quite good seeing it going like this. But Bogan just got a bit of feedback that your mic might be a little bit low as well. So just looking at comments in the chat
Okay,
as well.
I did turn it down a bit because I was getting a lot of feedback from that fan. Just let me turn it up.
Good evening, lads. The Shockmaster back with Cardi Party.
Oh, the Shockmaster. That's one of my fucking favourite names on
Shannon,
YouTube.
Dino. Jamie, I think Joshy, we're expecting him to come back at some point. We'll have the All-In League next week as well and jump into the group code, mate, that you can see up there. But yeah, welcome, guys. So I guess the Smith one's
now,
interesting,
guys.
If
you want to give Brent feedback, so to speak. But
yeah, the interesting one with Smith will be it'll impact pretty heavily on whether Harry Grant is relevant or not. So there'll be plenty of people, I think.
Well, how can you not have Harry Grant be relevant?
Well, if Smith's there, he won't be relevant.
Well, I don't know. Is Bellamy the type of guy not to play a superstar like Grant? I dare say Smith would move into the halves.
Well, they sent him on loan to the Tigers for a year last year.
Yeah, but I don't think they expect him to blow up like he did.
I don't know. They didn't let him go. So
yeah.
Anyway, let's jump into it, Bugs.
All right. So what we're doing tonight, and this might be familiar to a lot of YouTube viewers, is we're going to do the rankings for each position. So let me bring up the board. So the S through F. For each of the positions. Now, because I was lazy when I was doing the graphics, Breno, they're in completely random order. So, because I just mashed the keyboards when I was naming the pictures. So, it's not going to be 1 through 16, but they're the 16 most highest priced players in each position. So,
yeah, no worries. And I reckon there'll be plenty of guys that aren't relevant in that list, and there'll be plenty of guys, not on the list that we do want to talk about. So we'll, they'll show up in any order. We'll tick and flick them, have a look, talk a bit about their draws, maybe how they're shaping up for this year. And
well, you'll have to breeze through a few, but as I said, there's a lot to get through. So Hooker's first up, and our first, it's like a Royal Rumble. I don't know who's going to come up first, but our first up, Victor Radley.
Victor Radley. Wow, I didn't expect him to come up first. It's obviously not in price order. Is he the bottom of the top 16?
No, it's in random order.
All right, Victor. Well, there you go.
445,000, and I just realised that the graphics are in shit resolution. So don't worry, viewers. You haven't had too many fucking bourbons. It's just I've accidentally captured the graphics at a low resolution. So they're a bit fuzzy.
Yeah, Victor's a pretty interesting one. Obviously, the injury last year, he didn't play.
He was fucking good until the injury, though.
Second, 2/3 of the season. He is an absolute workhorse. I think it'll be interesting to see how he comes back from injury. I have no idea how he's tracking, how he's looking. I think the expectation is he'll be fit for round one. I think he's one of those guys. It'll be interesting to keep an eye on him over the next, probably the start of the season. What sort of position he feels in. He started to play some pretty decent minutes at the start of last year. So just looking at his stats from 2020, he's playing, near 70 minutes for a few games there. His base is pretty good. He's in the middle there, and he also, with this new rule set, he could be one of those new, modern day locks who plays a bit of ball playing but actually gets quite a bit of attacking stats with the pace of the game up the middle now. So I think big fan of Radley.
What would you rank him?
He obviously you couldn't start the season with him. Ranking from what?
From S as being special, and then it's A through F.
Jeez, based on potential, what I've already seen from him, I wouldn't.
What do you think, chat? Victor Radley?
I'd put him at a C at the moment at best, just maybe a CB. If upper echelon's an S, possibly that CB sort of area.
Victor Radley, CB, you reckon?
At this stage,
on the line.
Yeah, maybe somewhere there. Plenty of potential. He's an absolute workhorse. He's obviously for Supercoach wise, he's got the duality between hooker and second row, which is helpful. awkwardly priced. You might want to have a look, but he could be a downgrade to someone if he starts a year well. You've started with a 500 plus guy that hasn't fired straight off, and if this bloke can get the minutes, he's one to keep an eye on for sure.
Next up,
Geez, you got me on the ball here, Bogan.
Harry Grant.
Harold Grant.
Do we even bother? Like he's straight to S class. I don't give a fuck if you just say he's A.
Oh look, obviously as we mentioned, depending on what happens with Melbourne will be interesting. Melbourne do have a pretty tough draw to start the season on paper. They start with South. They play Para, Penrith. That's their first 3 games. I've got no idea. No one has no idea.
And that's from a Supercoach perspective, the minutes is the only question on Harry Grant. His quality as a player he's a fucking superstar, and it's just that whether you think he's going to get the minutes or not would be the question of where you'd rank him. But he's clearly an elite player. He's a young bloke, so barring any injuries, barring the ego catching him, he's going to be around for a while.
Oh, he's a gun of the future, no doubt. I mean, when he plays 80 minutes, his base is anywhere from 40 to 50. But the thing is, he's got the attacking stats in him, and that generally is what gets his score up. His base, as I said, tends to be about that 50 mark, give or take. 40 to 50, which isn't unbelievable. It's solid. It's really, really solid. Don't get me wrong. On a bad week, he's still going to get you 50 points, but he's got all these, creativity about him. He's causing line breaks, setting up tries, getting line breaks himself. So there's plenty in him. There were a few games last season he played 60 minutes, and even if Cameron Smith does leave and they've got Brandon Smith there, and he only gets 60 minutes on the park, for instance. I mean, I really don't know what Bellamy will do with him. I don't know if I would start the season with him. I'd probably want to have a look at how Bellamy's going to use him. But, if there's no questions around, starts playing 80 minutes, he's a lock. You'd get him in a lock. He'll play Origin, I imagine, now as well. So you've got to factor that in. He's an Origin player. Melbourne, don't play the first bye, but if he gets picked for Origin, he probably misses a couple of weeks due to the few days after Origin, with the Origin on the Wednesdays, Bogan, whether he backs up or not, I'm not sure. But put him in the S.
He's a young bloke, so he very, very may well. So
chuck him in the S.
Yep. Next up, Jeremy Marshall-King.
Yeah, look, I mean, I would never...
At 459,300.
At face value, I wouldn't really consider him for Classic, the dogs have been hard to sort of pick. Dogs players have been hard to pick up in general in the past. I mean, he is a guy who can play 80 minutes of hooker. He's looking at some of his stats from last year. He didn't go too badly at times. His base, can be up to 50, somewhere around there. He's got some creativity about him. He can create plenty with the ball as well. It's just obviously hard in that dog's side. I'm not sure if there's a heap of competition this year. I don't know if they've made any signings in that hooker role. It's obvious Leisha won't be competing with him for any minutes this season by the sounds of it. But he's a sneaky. Again, he's really awkwardly priced, so it's hard to start with someone like that over. You go someone like Grant or Cook, and then it's really hard to justify 450 odd for someone like Marshall-King when there's plenty of other guys that are probably going to offer similar for 200k less or more.
Where do you rank him?
Oh, look, might be a bit harsh. Probably put him in that C. Probably like.
I think you're too nice. Are you going to put anyone as an F?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I guess maybe I'll have to reevaluate on the fly. I mean, he's done a job. You can have a look at his stats from last season. There was some bad ones in there, I suppose. I mean, maybe actually you could knock him back to a what's under the C, the D, maybe CD.
CD.
Yeah.
Sitting on the line again. Oh, let's move him. CD. He's just approaching on C. There we go.
Some people an F. It's fucking never going to be relevant or anything like that. But
yeah. Next, Cameron McInnes. We just spoke about it. He's a top player when he's fit. this year he's out for the season. He's a big F.
Well, I mean, if you're counting that, then yeah.
Well,
something,
we're ranking him for Supercoach 2021, and for Supercoach 2021, you definitely don't want Cameron McInnes in your team, unfortunately, because he's only got one leg.
Yeah.
That's as much as hopefully we'll talk more about Cam McInnes next year at the Sharks. On to the next one.
That's the other thing, Bo, and I got to mention to the folks, I've been talking to Kando as well, so we've got some analysis from Kando as well. He's sent me through some stuff, so we'll do what we'll call the doctor's diagnosis for a couple of these guys. I'll have a look at what Kando's done, the doc, and might paraphrase a bit of what he's got as well, just to
he's in the
add a
chat,
bit of
so
input.
he can also speak for himself. But
Kando's a great contributor and gets right amongst it.
He was best player last year.
And knows his stuff, so more than happy to pass on some insights from the doc. So the doctor's diagnosis will have, a few of those throughout the show tonight.
All right, next one. Appy.
Yeah, look.
Was it 587,000?
Yeah. 597 is it, Bogues? Or 87? Whatever it is. Well, yeah. How good are we going?
We're going great.
Look, he is probably one of the top three, I think, options this year. Behind probably Harry Grant, Damien Cook. Coruscant's got to be, one of the next guys you're looking at. He's, 40, 50k or 30, 40k cheaper than Grant and Cook, and there's plenty of upside to him. He's got so much attacking potential, and he's in a quality side as well. There's not a lot of downside to something like this. I don't think his base is as good as any of the guys. He makes plenty of tackles and that sort of thing. I think and I think Kando has written something here about this as well. One of the downsides of him is he is in a side that has plenty of options, so they're not necessarily relying on him week to week to do anything attacking wise.
But he's also got a lot of quality players around him, which for playing out a dummy half, it's there's always a lot of points in who he can pass the ball to. And
well, yeah, I mean it's a good point. You got guys like Sai Yo running off you. Fisher Harris probably doesn't score that many points, but even Cleary on one side, Luai on the other. Short at the line, some of those big boys. So he's still going to have that upside, no doubt. I think he's a great option. I don't think there's a heap. I think he's probably been a little bit under the radar so far. I'll be honest, I have not seen him in a great number of teams. But, his base is as good as any hooker in the comp. He's got the attacking ability as well. I'm just hoping, there isn't the possibility of someone like Kenny Edwards finding a bench spot and starting to take some of his minutes potentially this year. I'm not entirely sure how Cleary will do that. I imagine he'll probably still want him playing big minutes, but there's always that possibility with him.
Where do you rank him?
For me, he's got to be up there, up the top. And if he's not an S, he's on the borderline of an AS, SA, or whatever you want to call it.
Sounds good enough.
He's upper echelon.
Upper A's.
For sure, one of the top picks this year. I'd have to have a look at his ownership percentage as well. To be honest, because like I said, I feel like I haven't seen him in a great number of teams, Bogues. In Classic, I think he's a great option in draft as well. But yeah, look, I don't think you can go too wrong with Appy.
Next, entering the ring.
And Penrith have got not a bad start to the season as well. It's not awesome, not terrible. They play North Queensland Bulldogs to start, then they play Melbourne, Manly, Canberra, Brisbane. These guys are going to be a really good football team again this year, so I think you can't do too much wrong. He won't play Origin. They don't have the first bye, so you potentially got a guy there that you could set until, they're buying round 17, injuries permitting and obviously minutes permitting.
Next up is Jazz Travaunga.
Yeah, Jazz is an interesting one, Bogues. I might have a look at what the doctor's diagnosis is on this. I know he mentioned him, so let's have a look what Dr. Kandos has said on this one. So he is a points per minute beast. He doesn't necessarily get a heap of minutes on the park, but when he does, he's involved in everything, makes a heap of tackles, a heap of runs, and he's got a really good offload in him. Kendo's sort of saying if you can get at least 55 minutes out of him, he's probably punching 65 plus out. But that said, there is a heap of new faces in that Warriors pack, and there is a heap of options in that Warriors forward pack. It is a little bit unknown as to who's playing how many minutes where and that sort of thing. I'm just trying to think. I can't think off the top of my head, who they've lost, but they have, recruited. They've picked up Adam Fanua-Blake, Ben Masila. So you got Tohu over there that can play a heap of minutes. Some of the young forwards coming through. I think I heard today Alisi Katoa's injured his finger or done something. He's in doubt for round 1, but not long term. But yeah, the pack's pretty stacked. So he's priced at 550, which is an awkward price. He is a dual hooker second row, so that's always helpful as well. But you might want to have a look and see just what the role for him will be this year. I don't know if you can start with him in Classic, but he's definitely one to keep an eye on, depending on what the minutes are like for sure.
And he'd definitely be an option in draft too, because the hooker roles are usually pretty skinny in the draft, especially if there's a few injuries.
Absolutely, Bogues, absolutely. So, minutes submitting, I'd be putting Jazz in like a sort of B class. If he was a sort of guy to get 60 plus minutes consistently, he's probably easy. But just the role he's played the last couple of years hasn't permitted that sort of thing.
Next up,
just having a look at
Tom Starling.
Yeah, look, he's an interesting one. Obviously,
shot out like a rocket last year at the Raiders.
Yeah, Joshy Hodgson was he's not massive, sorry. He was injured back into last year. And I feel like the Raiders were better off without Hodgson, to be honest. It allowed guys like White and Williams to get their hands on the ball a bit more. And this bloke was electric. He reminds me of the sort of Damien Cook style of player. Supercoach-wise this year, it's going to be near impossible to start with him, I think, at that price, especially if Hodgson's there. I can only assume Hodgson will be somewhere there. I have no idea of what that makeup would be, whether someone in the comments might know a bit more in terms of whether Starling, gets a bench spot still, or if he's still there.
Where we needed. I keep going to call him Gomez. I know he's changed his name. Adrian.
Yeah. So like I said, you can't start with him at his price because with Hodgson there, he probably unfortunately won't get the premier hooking role, even though I think the Raiders are far better off with him. There's also that I don't know if he's been cleared of the issues that happened. I don't think he was in the wrong in the pre-season with whatever happened there.
Who hasn't had a pre-season it's like indiscretion at this stage? It's starting to get a bit ridiculous, to be honest.
A bit of a NRL prerequisite, isn't it? But anyway, I think, as Kando said, a bit of an avoid, unfortunately, but in years to come, it could be a good one. It could be the sort of thing we see over the next few years, or over this season, if he is getting limited minutes and, possibly, I don't know how many more seasons Hodgson's got left in him, maybe takes a bit of a dive in price and he could be a really juicy pick up for, the start of next year or something. Or, if Hodgson was to get injured again, he's probably a guy you can look at because he was pumping out some pretty good scores last year. I think he had an absolute monster to finish the year as well. Let me just have a quick look. Yeah, he finished with 157 votes.
Yeah, he did, because I picked him up in draft.
In draft, and you would have had him for the GF, but he didn't play. But definitely one for the future, but unfortunately you can't start with him. At this stage, based on his price, if we're talking mark him on a Supercoach pickability, you'd have to put him,
what would you
DE.
DE? E.
I just, for the price and the uncertainty at this point, without any other intel, I'd be putting him pretty down that list.
Yeah, all right.
At this point. Might be harsh, if you disagree, let me know, but you can't really go him.
No, you can't be being soft. E it is. Next up, Damien Cook.
DC9. Well, what can you say, Bogues? This is your man. You got any comments on DC Cook?
Yeah, straight to S. I don't give a fuck what you say.
Yeah, nah, I totally agree, mate. I don't think there's too much to say on this bloke. 2020 averaged, a few points less than he had in the 2 seasons prior. So in 2018, he averaged 78 points, which is insane. In 2019, 76, and he was down to 70 in 2020. I think there's a little bit of, I don't know if I'd call it adjustment. Look, the guy plays 80 every week. His base is awesome. 50 points in base most weeks, if not more. He's creates everything. He's so quick out of dummy half. And I think, whilst he played every game last season as well, Bogues,
Yeah.
which is massive for what he's doing in the middle of the minutes he plays. And, the role on that side, touches the ball, more than anyone in that Rabbitohs side. I don't know if I could, put anyone off for picking Damien Cook to start the season. I think I'll be starting the season with Cookie. I just think he gets better and better as he starts to figure out a bit of this new rule set. There might be a few new tricks Bennett will start to uncover, and I think he was, as crazy as it sounds, averaging 70. I feel like he was pretty quiet at times last season. He had a couple of patches there where, maybe I feel like he didn't do a heap at times, and he still had a 70 average. There were some weeks where he went big. He only cracked the 100 twice, which, it's still massive, but you probably expect a little bit more out of Cookie. He had 138 was his top score, 108, and after that it was all under the 100 marks. A few 90s, but I think he could have a bigger year. I don't put it past him averaging 75 plus this year, and it's sort of hard with the hooker position. Obviously, you pick someone like Cookie, he's going to be playing for the Blues. Rabbits have an indifferent start to the year, so they start with Melbourne, Manly, Chooks, Bulldogs. So 2 of 4 of those are good fixtures, but there's nothing to say he couldn't tear apart the Storm or the Chooks without having to look at the previous history versus them. But after round 3, their run's really good. I think you start with Cooking. You don't have to worry about it too much, to be honest. He's definitely up at echelon. So.
Kieran Ferran.
Oh, look. I am not entirely sure.
We might start flying through a few, but he might. I have predicted.
You're a fan, aren't you, folks?
Sorry?
You're a bit of a fan, aren't you?
I think there's potential there. Keep an eye on him, because I think there's potential there with him hooking back up with DCE, being back in a club culture that he's comfortable with, for him to start showing some old form. But he's got the red stripes there at the moment, so that means he's injured. So,
I think there's some carryover from last season's system, so don't worry about any of that.
Yeah.
I think there's a few players like that. Radley's got it. Watson's got it. Look, he's really awkwardly priced at 490. I imagine he starts the year at 5'8", Bogues, but there's the Schuster. I think Josh Schuster's the young bloke coming through, and I think I saw something the other day where Schuster's been doing a bit of training at 5'8", which makes me think possibly there's going to be a bit of rotation there. If Schuster's coming off the bench, it might mean, Foreign either starts at dummy half or goes into dummy half at some point and Schuster comes in. So I don't think you can touch him to start the year, Bogues. He's like a bad price. There's a lot of uncertainty around his role. Who knows if he even plays 80 minutes? I'm not entirely sure. I'd be putting him, below Starling personally. I mean, there's probably some lunatics out there that will go in, but I won't be touching him with a 10-foot pole personally.
So, what do you reckon, EF?
I don't know. I'm not going to say he's not going to do anything all year, but it'll be few and far between. So I'm putting him at least E. Tell me what you reckon about 4 in the comments, please. Give me something.
You can go E. That's fine.
Adro, how are you, mate? Good to see you joined us.
Ben Hunt, quick fire on this one. He's been around long enough.
Looks like he'll play halfback. I think his best position is probably hooker, but I think Griffin's come out and said he'll play half, is my understanding. They've just signed McCulloch, so he probably won't be playing any hooker. McCulloch could possibly play big minutes, depending on what sort of bench they run. They won't need him to play hooker. He's an interesting one at 450. I don't have him in pickable in hooker either. For me, you're running sort of premium cheapie or a couple of cheapies. I think I've seen some people going, so he's really awkwardly priced. there's probably some lunatics out there that start with him, whether it's a hooker or half. Dragon's start of the year is not too bad, to be honest. Like, we got a few decent, reasonable games to start the year with Cronulla, Cows, Manly. I wouldn't be going anywhere near him, but he's not badly priced. He's got a pretty high ceiling, but yeah, I agree, Adro. If he was actually playing hooker, there'd be some merit in him at 450 because I think that's his best position. He's getting in there making some tackles and he's quite effective out of dummy half real quick. But just from a Supercoach perspective, I'd be putting him around that somewhere where he is now, probably C.
Okay.
About that C sort of mark, to be honest, Bogues.
Yeah, you can slot in under Victor Radley there.
I mean, obviously, I'm putting it out there by saying they're this great or whatever, and they could come out and do a heap of things, but yeah.
Brandon Smith.
Yeah, look, again, not sure what the role is. Obviously, Tino's left. I don't expect him to be playing hooker, but who knows? Apparently, he wants to play hooker, and if he doesn't get the hooker spot, the speculation is he doesn't want to stay at Melbourne. There's been rumoured to be linking up with different clubs, whether it's the Dogs or the Titans or whoever. Again, he's sort of similar to someone like Jazz, I reckon. I think he's really effective when he's on the park, and his points per minutes, I mean, I'd have to have a look at what his PPM is. I feel like when he gets out on the field, he's just in everything. He's an absolute weapon, the cheese. His PPM's nothing crazy, at 102. I see this guy as a guy that if he can start to cement some minutes, he could be a really good prospect. But at this point in time of the season, I find it really hard to start with him, and I would be putting him. Geez, again, probably C at best, just for his price. He's too...
C at best, okay.
Well, I just think the price and the uncertainty around his role and, his minutes and that sort of thing, it's really, in Classic, he's just not really an option for me.
Yep.
Feel free to disagree and tell me why in the comments.
Kurt Mann, one of your boys.
Curtis Mann, yeah, again, similar sort of boat. No idea what the role will be. We've got Green, Pearce there. He won't be playing in the halves unless there's injuries. He probably won't be playing hooker. With Jaden Brayley back, and we've also got Connor Watson there, who I think is more of a choice. He could end up in centre and become not as relevant. I think last year he was playing 5'8". He was getting the ball 1,000 times a set and running it every time. The bloke has no idea how to pass, I don't think. And there was also times where he played in the middle. And was making a heap of tackles. I feel like he was just scoring tries every week as well. Had a huge year. I think he was one of those guys we put with Lomax. If you started with those two guys to start the year, you had a stellar season. But at 570, uncertainty around his role, the positions you can pick him at is 5'8" and hooker. They're too valuable to be going someone like this for that price. So, D, I'll be putting him at a D, if not, E, to be honest, just for that price and the lack of relevance to his role at the moment, unless there's an injury or something massive changes.
DE, let's put him.
Yeah, and the boys team to agree, which is good. Plenty saying E, 570 overs and DE. Yep, cool. I agree, fellas. How many's that? 3, 6, 9, jeez. 2/3 of the way through. We haven't even got to the relevant cheapies and mid-ranges yet. Can't pass Leftino, I agree, mate. The bloke couldn't pass COVID to his nan. Reid Marnie. Yeah, look, I'm a big Reid fan, Bogues, just on face value. I like the guy, the way he plays footy and that sort of thing. From a Supercoach perspective, he's a hard one. Like, I thought maybe last year was a bit of a smoky. He did play 80 minutes to start most of the year, but then he started to play 50. He started to get hooked a bit, and then he became really irrelevant. Again, I think just for his price, and again, I'm not entirely sure if they've made any signings, whether someone might be taking some of his minutes or what, but he's the sort of guy we would love to see him elevate his game, and I feel like he could be someone that became relevant. There's just still some uncertainty about him. He's similar sort of price to a few of those other guys that I just said. Because of his price, he's awkward. Your Brandon Smiths, your Ben Hunts, your JMKs. He's probably a bit safer than a couple of those guys in that he's probably going to be guaranteed a few more of the minutes. But I think if you're serious this year, you couldn't probably start. I mean, there's an argument to be made you could start with him because Parra don't have a terrible draw to start the season. They play Brisbane, Melbourne, Cronulla, Tigers, Saints. So they have one of the best probably opening 5 fixtures, to start the season. I mean, he'd be a massive pod. I don't know if you can... like I said, go him over someone like a Cook or a Grant if he's going to get the minutes. It'll be a big ploy. You save 150 grand, but you want to be spending that money pretty good elsewhere because, guys like Cookie and Grant can ton up with ease, and I think it's a little bit harder for this bloke. So, in terms of a grade, Bogues, I'll be putting him somewhere where he is there. Maybe sort of C on the cusp of potentially being someone that could be B-ish, maybe. Would depend on what sort of year he had this year. But definitely a bloke to keep an eye on. I'm a big fan just from a, watching footy perspective.
CB?
So I'd put him next to Brandon Smith, maybe.
Okay. Just so he's in the middle there. Yeah.
Somewhere there. We're just talking classic and pickability. Andrew McCulloch. Wow, eh? Look, it's sort of a bit hard with McCulloch. I mean, there's the expectation. Obviously, he's just signed with the Dragons. Assuming he plays 80, he could actually be relevant. He's a really interesting one. He's an awkward sort of price still, but if he's playing 80 minutes and he's fit and he's injury free, yeah, I mean, there's no reason to say you couldn't pick him. Just looking at some of his scores from last season when he signed with us, he got 80 minutes and he sort of scored 60 generally. I think after that period signing with us, he had a 60, 60, 40, 50, 70, 90, 60, and then obviously got injured. So, it might be a bit hard at the price. He's got to at least be scoring 60, 50, 60 to be relevant, and you're taking a bit of a punt on him at 460. But I think there's merit in it. If you're looking to go someone a bit cheaper than your Cooks or your Grants or your Appies, I think he's one of the next best options in that awkward, like that mid sort of price. And if you don't want to run cheapy, I think he's maybe definitely keep an eye on him, and definitely probably a good draft pick. In terms of a grade, I guess I'd be putting him around that upper CB sort of range, to be honest, Bogan. Just for his price, he's got a bit of value there.
Okay.
But I guess it remains to see what sort of role he'll play. So somewhere there, definitely one to keep an eye on, I reckon. What do we got in the comments? Macca on 80. Yep, we'll rack up a pile of tackles. Let's see. Sorry, I've sort of forgotten about the doc's diagnosis. Who's he got in there? Has he got McCulloch? He doesn't, I think, because when he wrote this, McCulloch was not going to be relevant at the time. So, yeah, look, happy with that.
All right, next up. Reece Robson.
Oh, yeah.
You can just give him a letter and move on if you want.
I just don't know what the role is. I think he's going to be a great player in the future. I think they've got Granville there, but I think they might
covered my ass for a couple of weeks in draft last year.
Turn of the what do you call it? I don't know. I think he's definitely better than Granville if he gets 80 minutes. He's I think a draft pickup more than anything. His price is just priced himself out of it at 490. Better options. Not sure what the makeup of the hooker position will be either. So. Yeah, I couldn't pick him. I think he's got great potential, player of the future. Chuck him in a D at this point for Classic if you're talking just this year and from a Classics perspective to start the year. If he definitely, as the boys are saying, if he starts to get 80 minutes, he'd be really relevant, but I just don't know if that's going to happen when you got guys like, Granville there. I don't know what the role of Clifford will be if they've got Drinkwater and Morgan in the halves. I guess I'm just not entirely sure what the go is with his role, so...
Lucky last. Cameron Smith.
Oh, what do you say?
If he plays,
I mean, say he signs.
I tell you what, that's the mark of a player, isn't it? He's 700,000, and it's not even sure if he'll be playing.
And the bloke's 48 years old or something, isn't he? 49, turning 50 this year. Look, he's obviously S tier. He's been an elite for many years. There's not really anything you can question. He'll go down as an immortal, probably the greatest ever.
As I said, if he goes to the Gold Coast and does a Brady, you have to say he's the GOAT.
Oh, look, I think he already is. I mean, like I said,
I'm a bit older than you, so I put the bar a little bit higher for modern players.
From a Supercoach perspective, it's hard to start with him. I mean, if he starts at the Titans, there'll be people that start with him just because of who he is. At some point, and I've said it for probably the last 5 years, he has to slow up, doesn't he? If he doesn't retire, he can't keep playing 80 every week.
As I keep saying, he's rugby league's Tom Brady.
And I think if he was to sign with the Titans, they got a big forward pack, and you saw what he was doing last year with Tino and Nelson, and guys like that close to the line. He's basically, guys are unstoppable when they get a short ball off him close to the line, and he would link back up with Tino. Guys like David Fafita, Mo Fataika, Mofo, and Herman Sasa. These are big boys who run hard and close to the line. Those sorts of balls he throws, and he'd be a massive asset to that team, and would put the Titans on the radar big time. I think
what if he ends up with the Broncos? Isn't that potentially more dangerous with the Broncos forward pack?
Well, not when you consider they lost Fafita. I mean, once Haas is back, they've got TBJ. Same sort of thing. I think Brisbane need it more than the Titans do, definitely.
I fucking hate it. I want him to go to the Titans more than the Broncos because fucking hell.
Brisbane had their chance to sign him and they let him go. I mean, he was a Brisbane junior always in that area and they never picked him up. So I think he can give him the FU. That'd be great. I'd be sick if he signed with Brisbane. But, Bogues, Supercoach perspective, obviously with the unknowns at the moment, you can't pick him up. Who knows what he's doing? We'll probably find out in the next couple of weeks. My money would have been on him to retire before I saw that post today, but now I've just got no idea.
And as I said, he might just be trolling the media. He might have just thought, fuck it, I'll just go down to the local park with some footies and see what they have to say. I'm still saying nothing.
My understanding is that his kids are schooling up there, or his family's up there, or something.
I said that earlier on the Australia Day episode. But you don't move your kids to the Gold Coast and start them in school at the Gold Coast if you're planning on playing footy in Melbourne.
Well, the other thing that you got to consider is all the COVID stuff that was happening and the lockdown in Melbourne and being away from family. Maybe they made the decision to shift up there because if something did happen, the missus wasn't stuck at home with the kids in lockdown. But
there is rumours of a storm with Melbourne's sporadic lockdown being moved to Sydney, but we'll save that discussion for when it happens.
Yeah. All right. So that's our 16. There's probably a few other guys I'd want to mention, Bogues.
Yeah, you do that while I clear everything off. And set up
have a look at what the Candos has got in here. Some cheap. So obviously, I think now we're talking some guys a bit cheaper. These are all the top, the highest, most expensive Bogues. Top 16 most expensive. So there's plenty of guys that are going to be relevant in this sort of 350 and under sort of category, I think. Someone like, Jaden Brayley could be interesting. I think he's a little bit more too highly priced. He's coming back from an ACL injury as well, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. But he's the sort of guy that could get 80 minutes at hooker, and for 357, there could be a bit of value there. I don't know if you can start the year with him just because, again, I don't know what to read into whether Watson's going to, rotate in there or Kurtman might rotate in there at times. Didn't get to see enough of him last year. Like I said, for his price, if he's playing 80 minutes, he could be a little bit more relevant, but probably erring on the side of not at this stage. You got Wade Egan as well, Bogues, at 336. Rumour has it that they might be trying to look for an 80-minute hooker in the Warriors. So a bit of the Doc's diagnosis at this point. It might not happen straight off the bat, but if it does, he definitely becomes an interesting prospect. A big watch on Egan, I think. For his price at 330k, he's, that 40, 50k more than Watson, nearly 100k more than Little. It might be a bit safer to look at guys like Watson and Little to start the year because there's less risk there and you might be able to better use that 100k or whatever elsewhere. but have a really close eye on Egan, depending on what the minutes makeup is for him, because I think he gets really involved. Any guy playing 80 minutes is going to be relevant at hooker, especially at that price. But I think, he's probably got a bit of potential there. And then, a couple of the more obvious ones, you probably think looking at guys like Connor Watson. So I think more recently, Lockie Fitzgibbon's just been ruled out to start the season. So you'd have to imagine that's going to affect the forward rotation they would have had in the middle. So whether Barnett, you might have originally been planned to play in the middle, might shift out on the edge. It might mean Watson ends up getting a few more minutes than would have been expected to begin with. Newcastle do have a really good draw to start the year. So they play Bulldogs, Warriors, Tigers, Dragons, Titans, Sharks. I mean, there's no top 4 sides in the first 6 weeks of the competition for the Knights. So it is a big shame. It looks like Ponga will miss those first 6 weeks as well, something like that. But Connor Watson, for his price, definitely have a look. The duality between hooker and 5'8" is really helpful as well. So you've got a couple of options in terms of where you pick him. And I think the only other guy I messaged to you, Bogues, would be Little. So, I think we talked a little bit about Little during the team reveal.
He's my backup hooker at the moment.
Yeah, I think team list will sort of determine it in terms of whether he's relevant or not. I don't know what that'll look like, but I still think if that bloke was be playing 60 minutes, he's probably going to be relevant at his price. Pretty low risk as well at 247. So I think Little, decent prospect. Tigers don't have a good start to the year with Canberra and the Chooks. They also got Parramatta in round 4, so it might be a little bit more. You're going to get plenty of defence out of him, but I think, you got to have a look at a couple of those guys to start the year. And also this Simpkin, I don't know what to read into him. Apparently Madge has earmarked him and gone after him and brought him into the side. We'll have to see, but I can't see him taking, first year or whatever. He shouldn't be getting a heap of minutes to be relevant. It's just whether he's taking some minutes off Little that could actually be a little bit annoying. But, just a couple of other guys to mention, which I think plenty of people are already looking at. They're pretty obvious, but if you're looking for some cheaper options.
Sorry about that. Just tweeting out. So if you want to go back through Brent's choices for hookers on the ratings there, I just tweeted it out on the at BJ on GameDay show Twitter. So, all right, you ready for the next one? Halfbacks.
Let's do it. Well, this will be easy. We'll premise this one, Bugs, with a bit of a diagnosis from the doc. So, and I would wholeheartedly agree with this. The halfback this year is looking like one of the most difficult positions to pick. The quality really drops off from a couple of the top guys. So you got guys like Cleary, DCE, obviously SJ's injured to start the year, but after that, you're really going to be taking a punt on someone at a mid-range price if you're not going to go a bottom dollar guy. And there does not look like there is going to be anyone really bottom dollar that's going to start the year at this point. It doesn't look like Sam Walker will get a start. Jaden Sullivan, it doesn't look like he's going to get a start. So that, that second halfback position is going to be really interesting this year. And there's probably going to be some make or break. People are going to go with someone a bit pottish and it might be worth 400 or 500 and it could make or break some starts to the year. So it should be really interesting. But just premise it with a bit of the diagnosis from the doc there. But Cody Nikorima, mate, to start the season. What are your thoughts on Cody? I think you had him a bit in draft last season, folks.
Yeah, I had him in draft. He was consistent, but he wasn't really a high scorer. But you could sort of rely on him.
Yeah, look, I would have to have a look at what he did last year. I think he's a bit of a yo-yo. Like, you're a little bit riding the roller coaster with him, are you not? Like, he gets 100 one week and then 23 the next sort of thing.
I don't think he fucking turned up at all.
I think I'm looking at his stats from last year. He had a couple of good years, but he has the 30s in him. I think he's a good player to watch it just from a face value, watch him footy perspective. He's a live wire. He's off the cuff. He's really entertaining to watch, no doubt. Supercoach wise, like I said, I think you're riding the roller coaster. It reminds me a bit of, the SJ from back in the day. Just a lot less consistent with the high scores, but I don't think you can go him to start the year at 460. If you do, you balls out. Power sort of move.
What are you ranking?
I'd be putting him DC, mid between DC, to be honest. Like, has the potential, but if I'm coming up against you with him in your side, I'm probably not going to be too concerned if it was looking at it that perspective. But he's the kind of guy who gets 110 against you that week, and then they play someone else next week, and he gets 30. Bastard. Have I rated him too high? CD. Dino agrees. That's good. Good, Dino.
DCE.
Yeah, look, DCE, like I said, I think there's only 3 premiums there this year if you include SJ, I guess. I mean, yeah, there's probably a few others, but yeah, he's one of the premiums. I think he's the next best option after Cleary, and he's considerably cheaper, like 150k cheaper. The other interesting thing to be, determined with him is whether Garrick is in the side, because if Garrick's not in the side, it's a high possibility that he will be goal kicking. They don't have the best draw to start the year. I guess that's one of the concerns, but, Turbo's back. When you've got Turbo in your side, he's obviously a massive attacking threat, so it's only going to, hopefully influence his scores positively, and that he's passing to Turbo, who's hopefully scoring a try. The problem will be is if he's the assister. Like I said, if Garrick wasn't in the side, I'd be tempted. I'd have another look at him closer to team list, because with the goal kicking, he's, I think, a little bit of a different prospect if he can add, 10 to 20 points to his score each week if they are scoring tries and scoring points, because he can ton up with ease. He's the center. He can be the centerpiece of their attack. I don't know if I'd call him S, but he's definitely an A for mine.
Yeah.
I couldn't criticise anyone to pick him to start the year. It's just their draw isn't awesome. So that'd be the only thing with him at this point in time. I wonder if the doc's got any...
Mitchell Pearce.
Mitch Pearce. Oh,
Peace off.
God. No, I think unfortunately, even from a Knights fan perspective, looking at him last year, I think Pearce's best footy's behind him. He's only getting older and slower and more injury prone, and he did a couple of good things last year, but he's, I can't wait till his contract's over, to be honest, and I hope we don't re-sign him because he's been a bit of a letdown. There was a couple of glimpses there last year. He started the year well, but fell off the radar massively. I don't think you can go anywhere near him in Classic, even at 450, even though we have a really good start to the year. I just don't think he's the player he was obviously 3 or 4 years ago in terms of his mobility and his, a little bit of that pace off the mark. I mean, he could prove me wrong in that first 6 weeks because we do have such a good start, but you won't see him in my Classic team in a blue moon. I'd be putting him like D at best.
D for Mitch Pearce.
That one's an interesting one. I mean, no Ponga there. I think no Ponga is obviously a downside to him as well.
What if he humps another dog? Does that lift him up?
Oh, God. Maybe D for dog. I don't know, I'm not, D's probably generous at this point.
Jerome Hughes.
Jerome, big fan of Jerome. Again, just from a footy watching perspective, super entertaining.
He's been dual position the past couple of years. This year they've got him purely as a halfback. Is that the way the Storm are going to play him?
I imagine so. I think now he's the Premier 7. We saw it last year. Was quite influential in that side and was pretty important to them as well. And if Smith was to move on, all of a sudden he becomes a lot more important. Look, he's an interesting one. He would be a massive pod pickup, and there might be some people looking at him at his price. Melbourne's start to the year is, they play Souths, they play Para and Penrith. It is the Storm.
And he's not really a Supercoach gun, but as a player, he's a fucking gun.
He's one of those guys where there's just nothing doing and he can create something. He's got plenty of 80s in him, but he also will have that 30 in him. So there is some risk out of it. With that 540k price, there's like plenty of risk. He's definitely not a consistent scorer. If they had a better start to the year, there's some merit in it. Definitely probably a better draft option. If he was priced, I think his price just sort of puts him out of it a little bit. At this point in time, in terms of Supercoach and the rating system, I'd put him sort of CB just because of his price and their start to the year. He's sort of awkwardly priced. He's not an easy choice. I think he's a great player. I just think all things considered, he's probably sitting in that CB would be, even probably a little bit generous. Adro's thinking he's the best option after Cleary, DC, and SJ, which is probably true. Troy, blokes on contract years, that's true. We haven't taken that into consideration either. Guys tend to play their best footy on contract years, so when they're playing for a contract...
Wouldn't you, mate? That's a lot of fucking money that you want to keep earning.
Yeah, so you look at guys like maybe Milford this season, I think, and a few of them like that. But don't be surprised if you see them playing some of the best footy of their career. But it's a fair point. I mean, you probably don't look at it too much at face value. But imagine if someone did some, analysis of how guys go on their contract years, last year contracts before they've been re-signed. There's probably some correlation there around, high point scoring, having their best stats season-wise.
And we've seen it happen 1,000 times when that's what ended long-term contracts, is that when a player gets a long-term contract, they start slacking off. So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at Milford. I mean, I think he's done nothing since he signed with Brisbane, to be fair. So contract year, I think, for Milf. So if you like to ride the Milf, get on it this year, because it's a contract year, even though he's broken his hand. But yeah, anyway, I do like Hughesy. I think he's a great footy player, but let's move on from him.
Ash Taylor,
yeah, another interesting one. I mean, you got these now, the bookend in David Fafita. I'm not, if someone can tell me what the intention will be in terms of who's playing on what edge. I'm just trying to think, where was Fogarty last year, and Ash? Is Ash on the left? Ash on the right? Someone will know. I'm not entirely sure what will happen with who's going to be running off him. If Cameron Smith is to sign again, it changes his prospects a bit. He does goal kick. There might be some points in the Titans side if they do, sign Cameron Smith. But, at his price, he's probably not overpriced, but I'm probably putting him at this point in time like that C-ish sort of range at the moment. Yeah, it'll just depend on a few things. If he's on, Dave Fafita's side of the field, if Cameron Smith signed, C probably at best. I mean, he's not too expensive. He's an interesting one. I actually like Fogarty probably a bit better if I had to pick out of one of the Titans half, to be honest.
Kyle Flanagan, and you can see this has a slightly green tone to it because he's in my team. I like Kyle Flanagan.
Yeah,
it is a bit of a gamble with him at the Bulldogs because the Bulldogs aren't pretty shit, but yeah, I really expect him to lift, having ownership of a position, sort of being able to get a little bit more comfortable in it, and being given a fair crack.
Yeah, look, he's an interesting one because the Dogs don't probably have that, attacking weapons. I mean, Raymond for Taylor Marin is a good edge runner as any back row in the comp, really. I mean, he hits a good hole. I don't know if he's out to start the season. I'm not entirely sure what's going on with him. But, Flano's an interesting one. 520k, he does have that duality, which is good. Will probably kick goals, I'd imagine. I think he'll be the centerpiece of most of their attack in that sort of the red zone, I guess, when they're on the attack. Like I said, if they had a few other options in attack, if they signed Israel Folau or something like that, or had a more quality fullback or something to chime in at the back, maybe. But it is hard to sort of look at guys from the Dogs. I think he's a good draft option. I think his price is a little bit hard. I know you went him in Classic Bogues. I don't mind him, but I think at the price you're probably going to have a look because there's definitely the potential that if the Dogs get run over in a couple of games, he might only score 20 points or something like that. There was times in that Chooks team where they dominated teams, and if he wasn't kicking goals, he would have only scored 20 points. It was just the fact he kicked 6 from 6 or 7 from 7 that he got an extra 30, points and scored 60 or 70, In terms of a ranking, C. I think the price is just sort of a bit hard. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some people that start with him and, someone pulls something off, but their draw... they start with us, then they play Penrith, Brisbane, Souths, Melbourne. So it's not a pretty first 5 weeks, to be honest. Agree, Adro. He probably only looked okay in a Roosters team, and he did get completely hooked. So, worst team, new team, there'll be new combinations. He might be a bit iffy to start. Definitely couldn't start the year with him personally, Bogues.
Ben Hunt, what'd you rate him last time?
I don't know. Get rid of him. You got a Ben Hunt. Bit of a Ben Hunt. What is it? A crush on Ben Hunt? Yeah, man crush.
What?
You got a man crush on Ben Hunt. You want to talk about him again?
No. It's just he was in both positions. What'd you put him?
Where's the QA?
I think it'd be D.
No, I had him like maybe C D. I reckon C-ish, C-D-ish.
You fucking
C-ish.
middle of the road. You don't want to upset.
He was
anyone.
around Brandon Smith. He had potential upside, but I think he's a bit. His price wasn't too bad, but yeah. We'll see how consistent I am.
Nathan Cleary.
Yeah, look, he's an S. Just put him up there. They've got a pretty good opening couple of fixtures. Melbourne third round. I don't think there's much else to say. His price reflects where he's at. I mean, this kid's. I don't know how old he is. I don't think he's very old. But
And price is the only reason why you wouldn't pick him. I personally am looking to build up the war chest to be able to pick him up later in the season. But
I think the problem you have, Bogan, is that there's a very real possibility that he scores 100 in one of the first 2 weeks.
I know, but
or 100
if you want to have Teddy, you want to have Cook, you want to have all these other blokes, mate. You can't have them all.
I agree. I mean, he's not cheap. The other, I guess, benefit of it is there's so many options in that Penrith side. You now got Luai, who had an awesome year last season, who you could argue is a go-to for the attack. So they have a couple other focal points. It doesn't all have to go through him. You know, whatever happens there, we'll see. I just think kicking goals, they'll score 40, 50 points a couple of times this season. Probably when the going gets tough, they do tend to go to him a little bit at times as well. You know, generally, he wants the ball in his hands. He's not afraid to take on the line. He's not afraid to make a few tackles. I think he's a bit of a complete package. And I still get haunted by that 180 or whatever it was that he scored a few years ago to finish the year against us. I think it was 2019. But he got me home in a big cashy. So I've never been so happy to see the Knights get flogged and Nathan Cleary score a hat-trick, I think it was, because he got me over the line in a big cashy. But yeah, set and forget. Origin, I'm not sure how people are going to, whether they're going to try and sit on him or what will happen. But he's definitely not a guy I want as a pod in my team this year, against my team this year.
Mitch Moses.
Yeah, look, he's an interesting one. Might go have a bit of a doc's diagnosis
and
here.
to be fair, if I do get rid of Flanagan, Mitch Moses is probably who I'll move to.
I think he's a really good option. I think probably had a few discussions on this bloke as well. He didn't have his best year last year for sure. I was a big fan going into the year with him. Like I said, I think I picked him up early in a couple drafts thinking he was going to have a big year. He looked, looking at the doc's diagnosis, he didn't take on the line a heap. He didn't throw, that right edge did definitely lack. And that was the Blake Ferguson edge. Maddo was a standout there, but Wonga Blake didn't score too much. Chando's telling me only 7 assists compared to the previous season of around 20, which is crazy. It's a massive reduction. So Para have a really good start to the year, and I think if you're going to go someone, if you're not sure about who to go in that second halfback position, or if you don't want to go Cleary, I mean, here's a guy who kicks the goals. You can only assume he's going to have a better year than last year. And he's the kind of guy who can ton up. He's also the kind of guy that can sort of go missing at times, and he goes a bit into his shell and can all of a sudden get you, a 20 or something when you're expecting him to get 100. But, I mean, to be fair, you have a look back at his scores last year. Was it? Where is he? Let me just find him. Sorry, doing this on the fly. Hang on. I think there's a possibility you could be thinking about him for your second halfback spot, to be honest. If there's no decent cheapy options in that halfback position, it's sort of hard to find 480k just because there is a little bit of risk attached with it. But I still like him. I don't know if it's just a bit of bias from me thinking he was going to go good last year. Yeah, he didn't do much last year. It was pretty quiet, but
where would you
surely he can't go as bad. I'm putting him CV just because there's still some risk attached to him with the price, but he's got the potential. Para got a good start, pretty good start to the year, I think.
You know what? You've decided. I'm upgrading him for you just for space.
Let's put him over Ben Hunt. Fuck Ben Hunt off.
Put him over Ben Hunt?
Yeah, agree, AJ. People.
Fucking for Ben Hunt's probably like, you know what? I'll get into Supercoach. What's this show?
Oh yeah, give me a spell. Yeah, Moses is the kind of guy. Once he gets going, he gets going. If he starts the year well, he could burn a few people. So they start with Brisbane, Melbourne, Cronulla, Tigers, Dragons. So maybe you have a look at him against Brisbane, see how he goes. You probably won't be on him for the Storm game, but after that, Sharks, Tigers, Dragons, and then the Raiders, Brisbane Dogs. 6 of their first eight fixtures aren't bad. So it'll just be depends on how he starts. But when he's going, he's good to watch. So Adam Reynolds, mate. Thoughts on your boy? I'll have a sip.
He's a fantastic halfback. He's a terrible super coach pick.
I think, look, they're going to be up there again this year. South's probably one of the better spines in the comp. When you think you're at Reynolds, Walker, Latrell should be back at fullback, and obviously Cookie. I think I had him in draft last year, and he went really well. And then I dropped him
especially in the later rounds, he went really well for you.
Well, I think I dropped him, and then someone picked him up, and he actually performed really well to finish the year from memory. If I have a look, yeah, his last 7-8 rounds, were as good as any. There was a couple of under 50s in. He had 2 sub 50s, and the rest were all sort of 60 plus with a couple 120 pluses. So, what is South's draw looking like? Is it not bad to start the year? Melbourne, Manly, Roosters. So, 2 of the first 3 a bit indifferent, but after that they've got a bit of a purple patch. Look, he's a little bit sort of awkwardly priced at 530. If you're not going to go with Cleary, you're not going to go with Cherry. There's a possibility there. He kicks the goals. He does get the odd meat pie. He's got a really good deft kicking game inside the red zone.
And when he's hot, he's fucking red hot.
I mean, if I'm honest, even though he's priced at that sort of price, I'm still putting him B-ish. I'm putting him around that B sort of zone because I think he's got plenty to offer. Again, he does have the odd 20 in him, maybe on the C side of B. Clinny, yeah, he's a bit of a better draft sort of guy. But I think maybe after the first three rounds, it's just sort of hard because you're going to go him from nowhere when you got guys like Cleary and DCE who are really relevant. And then in round 3, are you going to go and pick up a Reynolds and he's done nothing but their draw gets a bit better? Yeah, there's not a heap of great options at halfback, Kendo, agreed. So I don't know whether he had a diagnosis on him, but yeah, I'm still thinking he's got something to offer.
CHT.
Yeah, look, this is another guy who I reckon I'm seeing in a few teams, to be honest. I'd have to have a look at his ownership. I don't have it in front of me. I'd have to open it up. The diagnosis from the doc has been in and out of the Warriors team, but seems to have found a bit of a home now. It looks like it is his position now, and I do think at face value, passes the eye test, he's really entertaining to watch. I don't know if he's the best balance for Nicarima. They both sort of seem to have a similar style of play. Out of the 2, I feel like CHT is a bit more of the game manager, but he definitely has that off-the-cuff run the footy to him. He does kick the goals, and he is a dual, so he has that halfback 5'8", which is really valuable because there's not a heap of that. He's sort of not as awkwardly priced, like low 400s. He's definitely, I guess, more enticing than probably an Adam Reynolds. If you consider the price, I'd have to have a look at their draw bogues. Their first couple of games against Titans and us, and then they play the Raiders and the Chooks. Then Manly, St. George, Melbourne. So, a tough sort of start to the year, depending on how you look at the Titans and Newcastle, but definitely with the Raiders and the Chooks. How did he go last year? Have you got any thoughts on him? Have you watched too much of him, Bogues? Or?
No, not really.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a look at his scores from last year, he fluctuates. He's got those 30s in him. The goal kicking's a big plus. Hopefully he retains that. I don't know if I could go him. I'm sort of put off by him just from looking at his scores, but I wouldn't blame people for starting with him. He's definitely got the potential and is entertaining to watch. I just think if they had a better start to the year, he might be a bit more enticing. But I understand people picking him if there's sweet FA to pick from in the second halfback position, there's definitely plenty of merit. 7.7% choose Clemmy, so he's definitely in the pod zone. Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm not too concerned with anyone that has him, but this could be the kind of kid that has an emergence, a breakout year. Not entirely sure how old he is either. Full of all the great stats here on BJ and GameDay, but look, enjoy watching him. Probably more looking at him in draft. In terms of a grade, probably the lower side of. I'd be seeing him personally. Happy for people to disagree. I'd be chucking him in the C just because he's still yet to prove himself. But happy to be proven wrong this year by CHT.
Yeah, he's on the lower end of C just because of space. But yeah,
that's all good.
Oh fuck, we must be. No, still got a few to go.
Fucking hell.
Bunny Benji.
Nah.
No.
Nah.
We get to fill out some lower letters now?
Nah. Yeah, unless there's some long-term injury
I've sort of feel like I want to pick him just for nostalgia.
do it in draft. But nah, Classic won't be relevant for his price. He probably won't. Well, I don't know if he even gets a bench spot just for that what if of a hooker or something, or a half does go down because Adam Reynolds is
I dare say he's
made
there
of glass.
For coaching experience, essentially.
Not a goat, but he's, it's Benji. Let's put him at an E because it's Benji. Anyone else at that price for their role with DNF? I like Benji, but he's not going to be relevant unless there's a long-term injury in the halves. I'm sorry, buddy.
Yep, sorry about that. Microphone problems. But what would you rank him?
Didn't you hear me?
No, I didn't, because I had microphone.
I said it's only because it's Benji will I not make him an F. You can put him in E because his price and the role.
I'll put him as E, but I'll still make him his square larger than
he's not the GOAT, but I'll never forget that flick pass in the grand final. That'll be something I'll never forget. So,
next up.
Oh, Clemmy reckons Benji will get a bench spot and play a bit of a middle type role. That'll be interesting.
Well,
I mean, I don't know.
They didn't sign him for no fucking reason. As I said, I think he's more there for the experience that he can give the team. And
last year he didn't play terrible.
He played fucking well, really well, until fucking Madge dropped him. He was fucking sitting second in the Daily M's when fucking Madge dropped him.
Yeah, look, we'll see what sort of role he has. I can only imagine Bennett's chucked him a lifeline. He's done that was he at Brisbane when he gave him that contract as well? He's got the pedigree. If there is a long-term injury to Walker or Reynolds, as the guy that walks in with so much experience in a pretty good side.
I still reckon there's good footy left in Benji.
It'd be almost seamless chucking Benji into a side like that, I reckon. So there's a bit of bit of contingency in that signing, but
anyways,
he won't be relevant.
Moving on. George Williams, the
G Willie, G Bill. Look, rumour has it Croker might miss the start of the year, might get some goal kicking, which is interesting. I'm a massive fan of this bloke. I think I would hate to know how many assists he had last year off kicks. He was absolutely in everything. Likes to run the ball. Creates space. Likes to get the ball in his hands. For a guy like I can't remember. I don't know how well Tompkins debuted. I don't know if Tompkins ever even came to fruition in his career, but I feel like looking at his scores from last year, he did better than what I'm looking at here.
He did. His scores didn't reflect how well he played last year.
He didn't turn up. He started at low 300s, so I think I started the year with him and started with him and sat on him, and there was plenty of people that got off. Yep. And I think he might have been dual as well.
Yeah, he was.
Thought he was great. I can only see him getting better, but he does. Yeah, there are some games where he had the 20s in him and stuff like that. I think the sort of thing with it though is Canberra are generally going to have a game plan some weeks where they hit a particular side more than others, and they might favour Whiten more than Williams' side. Obviously, no Bateman as well this year, so I'm not entirely sure who's going to be running off him. But yeah, big fan. Probably again more of a draft guy if you're looking for a halfback, and he's probably not going to go early. 467 again, sort of in that random ether of price. So I'm thinking maybe C just because of his price and he doesn't have that duality. I don't know what's the Raiders start to the year looking like. Not a terrible start to the year. Maybe erring on the B side of C, to be honest. Maybe put him, yes, maybe, yeah. Yeah, agree. His Supercoach scores don't necessarily relate to how he performs, but a big fan of him just from a watching footy perspective.
Now we're getting into covering up your fucking face if you keep picking up C's.
That's all right. I'll try and find some. I'll find some reach.
So I think what we can safely say is that when it comes to fucking halfbacks, you're pretty middle of the road. Next.
Well, maybe I'm being a bit harsh. Like maybe I could rank some of these guys more on the B-ish sort of zone. Maybe Georgie, Mitch.
You haven't given many Fs so far, but Fogarty.
Is that 430,
yep.
folks? I like this kid. I really like him. I think I can see him just getting better and better. I don't know if Dave Fafita's on his side of the field. I'm a big fan. And I cannot... Am I still there, Bogues? Yeah. Okay, my Skype has frozen. I've got nothing else in front of me now.
So you're gonna have to...
I can't really see... I think the Titans do have a good start of the year from memory. I'm a big fan of him. I want to have a look at how he scored last year as well, Bogues. But I think there's some merit in this guy at 430k. I'm putting him in that B zone. I reckon he's got plenty of offer. There might be some people that are saying that's maybe a bit high, but I honestly think
it's good, mate. Because if you said C, I was going to put it over your fucking face.
If you're asking me, I know Harris Tavita has the duality and will goal kick, but I feel like this guy's got more upside and more potential than Harris Tavita, especially when you think, someone like Cam Smith or even with David Fafita there and Tino there. I think this bloke's got plenty to offer.
All right, next.
What's the chat saying on Fogarty? What have I been ridiculed about, Fogs? Dro, yeah, Joe likes him. So yeah, I'm a big fan. I can't wait to see this kid this year. Close eye on him.
Luke Keary.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. I reckon he's gone a bit under the radar too, Bogues. Plenty of guys not really getting much of a mention. You're not seeing too much. He's got the duality this year, which is really good. He hasn't had that before, I don't think, or if he did, it was a while ago. Eventually we'll probably talk about Lachie Lamb as well, but obviously this guy's going to be, the guy that gets the ball in his hands more than anyone out of those two halves, I would imagine. Probably. 520k. Yeah, he's an interesting sort of price. The Chooks' start to the year is not bad. They don't have a bad start to the year for sure. 4 of their first 5 games are pretty good. You could take a punt on him. I don't know if there's a lot of people who'd be pretty pod. The duality definitely brings a bit more relevance, Kando. I agree. I think he's a massive pod to start the season. And when I say pod, I have no idea what his ownership is, but I can't imagine it'd be too high. If I had a quick look here, I'm always a massive fan of Keary. The problem is he has those 20s and 30s in him. What's his percentage? It's at 5%. So definitely pod. I'm putting him B. Price point is a little bit hard, 520, but with the draw and the role he should play, that he has to play for the Chooks to get back on track this year, I don't think he's a bad option. That's just my opinion. Yes, Keary is 1 HIA away from fucking your whole year. Adros is saying Keary had a fair few games under 30. True. He had actually a heap, so yeah.
And
B might be generous.
Lucky last, Sean Johnson.
Oh, look, he won't start the year. I don't know if he's missing the first 4 or 8 weeks. When he comes back, it'll be interesting to see at what point he comes back in that Sharks side. It's sort of hard if he comes back around 8 or 9 because they have the first bye as well, so you might only have him for 4 or 5 weeks, and he might be back for, say, a Melbourne or a Penrith game if he's back around 8 or 9. I'm not entirely sure what the mail is on the injury at this point. So might be someone you're looking at maybe after that first bye. The duality is massive. He might take a bit of a dip in price depending on how he starts. So possibly depending on when he gets back, you might want to be having a look at the price and the draw, and whether it's before that first buy. I'm still putting in BA. He's an unreal Supercoach player, and you can never. He's getting a bit older, I know, but I think he's still going to have relevance. He kicks goals. The Sharks are pretty shit, but he still can score points. So I like SJ still in the A's personally. He's got plenty to offer. I think he's another injury or two away from becoming a little bit less relevant. Another big stint would hurt him at this age. I think he's around 30, 31. So
do you want to talk about anyone else you have on your list? That's it for halfbacks.
What I message you? So we talked about Moses, G. Willie. There are a couple of those mid sort of weird price guys. You got obviously the problem we talked about is it doesn't look like at this stage there's going to be any awesome cheapies in that halfback position, which is going to make filling that second halfback really hard. If Burton was to sign with the Dogs, that would be really interesting. I don't know whether that's going to happen. I think the Dogs might try and push for that. I really don't understand the politics of what's going on, where it's all at, or anything like that. Penrith did side Jalen Salmon from Para, who is a half, I guess, as well. So I don't know if there's some planning there for the future, as in next season, or just in case for this season. It would be really interesting to see what happens with Burton. But otherwise, like I said, I don't think there's a great deal of those cheapy options. It's well noted, Bogues. So, there's a bit of a graveyard, a bit of a wasteland, I think, as the doc referred to it as. So I think that's going to be a really important position this year, is what you're going to do with that second half. Because if you run a 187 Sam Walker, it doesn't play for the first half of the year. I mean, Lamb will be an interesting one, actually. I think Lamb's probably worth a mention now that reminds me of it. He's someone that could actually be, the guy that fills that spot, Bogues. He's got, I think he's got the duality between hooker and half to start the year. I guess the problem will be the security for mine. I don't know what the security is going to look like for him. I know, it sounds like he's going to get the first option. There's some speculation that he might actually get a bit of goal kicking as well. Maybe when Takiaho's off the park. But
just on the Twitter, sorry to interrupt. Dean Zammit asked, when I tweeted out your picture of the hookers ranked, Brayley, what would you rank him as?
Jaden Brayley? Oh, look, for his price, I think maybe that's C.
C?
Like, he's not badly priced, might play 80, but doesn't have as much attacking flair as some of the others. You get through a bit of work for you at maybe that 350 price. He's got a little bit of value, but I don't know how much price increase he'll have in him if he's not getting attacking stats, because he could just be that 50 to 60 might be his ceiling most weeks, unless he's finding some regular attacking stats somewhere, whether it's a short ball to one of the big Knights forwards crashing over every couple of weeks or something like that. But yeah, I think the halfback one's going to be important, Bogues. Lockie Lamb at 310k is a really interesting prospect. My concern is his security. We've seen, in years gone by what Trent Robinson will do. He drop Flanagan at the drop of a hat. And there's plenty of options there. They've got Sam Walker, who's meant to be the next best thing since sliced bread. They've signed Adam Kieran, who's a noted half. There's Drew Hutchinson there, which I thought, hasn't done badly when he's got the opportunity to start there. So there's definitely some risk associated with it, but I feel like that is going to be a really pivotal and important position this year, and could give someone a really good leapfrog if you get that second halfback position right this season. Alrighty. A few of the boys are talking about a couple of the Sharkies boys. Again, I just have no idea of who's in the box seat for some of those positions. And yeah, like I said, team list obviously will inform a lot of what this looks like. It could be someone that comes out of left field, or if a Ben Hunt or a Corey Norman got injured, all of a sudden Jaden Sullivan's going to be the guy. But we'll have to wait and see, eh?
Alrighty, on to 5/8 speed round, because we've been going for a while.
Fucking hell, whose idea was this to do 16 players?
Yeah, I think next time I might do top 10 or something instead. Oh. But unless give us a like if you like the longer form and you like us doing more players. But yeah, 5/8. Cam Munster.
Oh, what do you say about Cam? S him up.
Straight to S.
He'll play Origin.
Oh, of course he
Obviously.
will. But
He's had a
barring
few injury issues with the knees in the past, which I brought him in 3 times last season, I think. Yeah, not the best start to the year, but you could argue he's just a set and forget until the Origin period and see how he goes. He isn't cheap, one of the more expensive 5/8s, but it's Cam Munster. Depending on, if he was to goal kick, holy dooly, if Cam Smith left and he goal kicked, it's almost like a no-brainer. Has the big scores in him. Again, once Smith leaves, he's going to be sort of a go-to with Pappy. The combination with Pappy, I think, only gets better over the next few years. So, yeah, I don't have much more to say on the Munster. You can't really go wrong.
Kurt Mann, what'd you rank him as last time?
I can't remember. Like E, have to be at least an E, if not E to F.
E to F in the 5/8.
I think so. Yeah.
Fuck, you've been a bit harsh on the old Kurt. He was really good last season. Jack Whiten.
Well, look, he's an interesting one. For his price, what's he, low 500s? I think he's just got that yo-yo. You're going to ride the scores with him. He's either going to score a double and score 120 or he's going to score 30. Yeah, he is a really interesting one. If the draw's good for him, he's probably more of a look. They don't have a bad initial start to the season. Yeah, I don't know. He obviously pigeonholes out on the left. If we could start flicking around onto the right or something like that, it would be really good, but I don't think Ricky's going to have him doing too much of that. Look, he's definitely a pod. He's not overpriced. He's definitely a big pod to start the year for that sort of price. And he's definitely, a form sort of guy. So I'll probably sit him like B, but like B to C, like lower side of B, just because he'll have those bad weeks in him. But he's a Dalian medalist, believe it or not, and you could still keep
King of the road,
King of the
road, middle of the road again.
Yeah, it's like Dro's saying. Dro's saying, if he doesn't score any tries, he's not really doing anything else. He's not a 5/8 that's setting up tries with great plays. He's the ball running guy. So.
Adam Dewey.
Oh, Jesus. You're killing me. I haven't even thought about Adam Dewey all year. I have no idea what position he's playing. Is he playing fullback, 5/8, wing, centre? Has anyone got any intel on Dewey where he's going to be playing this year? I have not even looked at him for a split second.
So he should be like a triple position player instead of a dual
position.
Yeah,
he's a Mr. Fix-It. I think at 480k it might be a bit hard. He might goal kick as well. And I think he had some good scores in him, to be fair, but at times throughout the year. But I don't know. He just ends up in all these random positions. I don't think you can honestly pick him in Supercoach. What's his dual? Is it fullback 5/8,
yep.
Bogues? Yeah, I just think for the value of
you're definitely
positions,
not picking him at fullback. There's too many fucking options.
Oh, even at 5/8, that's just he's not going to be your starting 5/8, and he's definitely not going to be the backup at that price. So
what do you reckon? Letter. Give him a grade.
Shit, man. E.
E.
Like if we're serious, he might be D on a good week, but
D is good. Cody Nicarima
do it at
again.
6.
What'd you give Cody Nicarima? A C.
Something like that. Dewey's playing 6. Well, there you go. I just have no idea. I feel like his best footy was at fullback, but I don't know. Tell me what you think about Dewey. I have not thought about him at all.
You already talked about Nicarima, so we can move on.
Yeah, go on.
Benji, we talked about. You fucking...
It's Benji.
Benji. You gave him an E, but you can sit down there. Dylan Brown.
Yeah, look, I think we've I might have had him in my team for the reveal, Bogues. I'm pretty sure I had. I'm a big fan of him. I like Para's start. I think he's just a young bloke that's going to keep getting better and better. Not a bad price. Good base for a half. If he can develop a bit more of the ball playing in his game, he just does run the ball a lot, and it does work some weeks, but there's other weeks where he's just chucking it under the arm and going. I don't know. I might rate him a bit more highly because I've got him in my team, or I did. I'm putting him in that like B to A category. Jesus, we've got someone saying Brown is a D. Get off it. Sports reactions. I'm putting the D Brown in there. He's got so much potential. You know, the first few weeks, he could catfish me like Moses did last year, expecting so much out of D Brown, and they have a reasonable start to the year. You know, Melbourne round 2, but after that, it's pretty nice. So, tell me what you think of Brown. I had him in over Munster at one point, but I'm a massive fan of the kid.
Ash Taylor again.
Yeah, we can miss that. I'm just seeing what the doc's got on the 5/8. Let's see what the doc's got. All right, I'll save a couple of those for the doc.
Ash Taylor, you put him middle of the road, didn't you? You pretty much put every halfback as a C.
Yeah. Anyone in 400k ended up about C.
Kiri again.
Oh, I think I had him.
You had him.
Did I have him B?
You had him B, C or some shit, making it fucking hard for me. Scotty Drinkwater.
Yeah, he's an interesting one, Bogues. I don't know what the role will be with him at the Cows this year. There's some speculation that Val Holmes might not be at fullback, apparently. And this guy may be finding himself there. I have no idea whether the male is good or not. At 500k, I do find it hard. You know, for the price again, it's a pretty important position. If it's 490k or whatever it is, I just don't think he's relevant at that price. You know, he was good at times last year, but I just think there's better options for another. You know, you're better off spending 100k more and going turbo, or you know, another 50k and going someone like a D Brown, in my opinion. You know, like I said, he had glimpses last year of brilliance, but I just am really unsure of what his role will be. It would depend. I mean, if he's at fullback, he's a much different proposition than if he's at 6, but I don't know. I don't know if you can start with him to start the year with his price, and it'll just depend on what the team lists look like. Yeah, but I think you definitely want him playing fullback. I agree, Adro. At this stage, I think for the price, I'm putting him C just because.
Oops.
Yeah, still some uncertainty there, Bogues. I'm not sure.
Yep,
team lists would be, influence that a bit.
Oh, where was I? There he is. And what'd you say? Of course, you said C.
He was good at times last year. He throws a great cutout ball, close to the line and stuff like that. I don't know.
All right, at least this guy will be a bit higher than a C, I reckon. Jerome Luai.
Let's see what the doc's got to say on Jerome. Luai, so he did start the season low last season, but got better as the season went on. He finished the year absolutely brilliantly, and I was one person that didn't think he could keep going the way he did. I think I traded him a week. He scored 100, and he just kept doing it and was absolutely massive on that left side of the Penrith attack. Ended up just wanting the ball in his hands every set, basically. Every run he'd want the ball and take it himself, and guys like Crichton and Kikau out on him and Mansour down there. Plenty of upside. Obviously, Cleary's the dominant half, so they're going to probably generally go to him a bit more. But when they do, those weeks they do go to Luai. There's going to be weeks this guy scores 100 plus with ease again. They do play the first bye, so that's a massive upside to him. He was dual last season, which is a big positive that he loses this season. You know, maybe you don't go on Munster. This guy I put in that sort of D Brown class. He's probably a little bit. You've got to rate him better because of what he did last year in that Penrith side, and he was, wasn't really well known. Rate him highly. I think he could have another really good year, but he finished the year so well that you're going to expect a lot out of him as well. So if he does have a couple 30s or whatever in him, he might make a few people upset, and he might mean an interesting decision come third round where he could have 150 break even, and he's had a 30 and a 40 and you might have to make a decision to trade him, and then he burns you.
So A?
Yeah, I'm putting him A just because he had such a good year last year. His price isn't too bad. I think he's got great potential, but he could, he could still be a bit of an interesting one.
Kieran Ferran again?
I can't remember what we said on him. I think there was no relevance.
I think you put him
for me.
DE or something.
Yeah, there's a heap of options at 6 as well, Bogan, for when you consider guys like Watson and Moylan, where you've probably got the same sort of risk in terms of their scoring, but there's like 300k less or whatever.
Well, someone on the Twitter rated Connor Watson as S-class.
I mean, if you're talking like from a price perspective and that sort of thing, maybe, but
Well, I just responded to your tweet on the show, so I'm not responding to you on Twitter, whoever you were. Cody Walker.
Yeah, look,
surely he's up there.
Oh, look, he broke the record last year, scored the 200, the first player to crack the 200 barrier. So his price is reflective of that as well. So he's is he the most expensive 5'8" Bogues at 656?
I believe
I think he is. He's still a roller coaster. He was really good. He was really good last year, Bogues. He had a stellar finish to the year. I think I went the wire to Walker to finish the year at some point, and thought it was a great trade. And I think it was only this score in the final round that made it just a better trade. He's just really hot and cold. I think we saw once Adam Reynolds got injured at some point there, he started to play that main fiddle. And when that happened, his scores started to translate into better Supercoach scores. With Adam Reynolds there, they've got that other option. He's maybe less involved. So, I don't know. At 656k, they start with Melbourne round 1. They've also got the Chooks in round 3. I won't be starting with him. He's definitely, Supercoach upper echelon. But Cody Walker's the kind of guy you might get a 31 week or a 40, but then there's going to be a patch where he just goes 70, 80, 100, 90. Like, he will have that in him. I don't look at him at that sort of price, but there'll be a stage in the season where he probably hits 550, low 500s, where he'll start to get a bit of a look. I don't know whether he's in the Origin picture this year. They do play the first bye, so he might be a run home guy potentially as well, because they do have a couple of ugly fixtures before Origin. They'll play Melbourne, Penrith and Para in 3 of their 4 games before the first bye. So definitely might be a look for, round 14 onwards. We got Frankie K in the chat saying he's not as relevant when Mitchell's playing as well. So yeah, I guess they do have. I think the thing with Souths is they do have a lot of options in attack. So you have guys like Mitchell who can score the points. You got Damien Cook in the middle. Murray takes some of those points. That sort of thing, Bogues. So, he's not always going to be the guy that gets the points each week.
Oh, and our background's disappeared, but okay. We'll deal with a black screen for now. Oh, no, it's...
So, yeah, I don't think you can start the year with the Bogues. There probably will be some people that do because of what happened the end of last year. I think the serious players are probably going to be off him to begin the year, to be honest. Just because of that first couple of rounds, there's a couple of dodgy fixtures, and he's definitely inflated because of the 200 at the end of last year. But there'll be plenty of guys with their eyes on him.
Alrighty, next up, Sean Johnson again.
I can't remember. I think we had him A to B, whatever.
But you'd say solid choice if when he's playing.
Yeah, run home. Have a look at the run home after that first bye.
Swap him in.
Yeah, you never know. Like, you could have a Munster, Walker, Johnson as 3 before halves, sort of, at some point.
Corey Norman.
Oh. I just think I resent this guy because I think Jaden Sullivan should have the shot. I don't know. I just don't think he's relevant. He's bad price at 450. He had a few probably glimpses of like scores. He's probably pick upable in draft, but there's no way he's ever going to be relevant in Classic. He's in a shit team.
So whereabouts?
Yeah.
You're going to give someone an F?
I don't think he's like F, but fuck it, just put him in F.
This is going to upset people on Twitter, because there's obviously people on Twitter looking at these and not watching the show.
You know the rules. He knows the rules. He's an F.
Kyle Flanagan again. You put him as C.
Yeah. Norman will get dropped by round 2 or 3. I hope so. I think if Hook is dead set, which I don't think he will break up that Brisbane connection of Hunt, Norman, and McCulloch now, Jaden Sullivan's the guy. But I think they're just paying too much money to Norman and Hunt to not play him. But I don't know. Maybe that was why they got rid of McGregor in the first place, is because he wasn't making those sort of tough decisions to drop the guys on form, regardless of what they're getting paid. And I hope Hook can do that. Maybe he gives Norman first option, and if he doesn't perform, he'll make those hard decisions they need to make, because, you know, in my opinion, Jaden Sullivan should be the guy. If they're thinking long term, it's got to be him. Imagine if he was to get snubbled up by a Chooks or or something like that. Like, holy dooly. Jaden Sullivan's the future.
So that's it for 5/8. If you want to go through your other notes or diagnoses by the doctor.
What's the doc got in there? We'll have a look at what the doc's got. I think Moylan and Hoy are worth a mention, Bogues. You know, they're both similarly priced. With SJ out, it looks like Moylan's going to get a bit of a go at the 5/8 spot. It looks like. I mean, I don't know. It sounds like there's a bit of competition in there. You got Tracy, Trindle, Townsend, Moylan. Kennedy, I don't know if Kennedy's even guaranteed the fullback spot. That'll be interesting. At 250k, though, you got to have a look at Moylan. Hoy the same. I know, the speculation around how long Ponga's going to be out for. It might be 4 weeks, 6 weeks. For the price, if Ponga misses 4 weeks, I still think you're going to get a rise or two out of Hoy, because we got a really good start to the year. Like, we play the Dogs, the Warriors, the Tigers, the Dragons. If he only gets those 4 weeks, he's still got some real potential to make some money in that 4 or 6 weeks or whatever it'll be. So even though the 6 weeks, if he gets the full 6 weeks. So there's some guys I think you can look at. Another guy that's interesting, that probably hasn't had much of a mention, I guess, would be Michael Morgan, Bogues. I know he's been really injury prone, and some probably say his best footy's behind him, but I've always been a big fan of Michael Morgan, and Supercoach wise, he can produce. I guess the concern with him is he's a bit tin now. He seems to get injured a fair bit, but he's not terrible price. I think he's like mid 300s possibly, and he might be dual as well. I've done my research here. I'm all over it. But he's a sneaky option. I mean, you got guys like Val out the back and Lolo in there. I think that's probably about it, really. But he's not getting much of a mention. Old Morgo at 386k. Yeah, so 6% ownership, which is that's probably higher than I expected. But yeah, the halves positions are really interesting this year, Bogues, because there's not a great deal of great cheapy prospects at this stage. So it's going to be really interesting to see team lists. Maybe there's a few gems in there that we haven't foreseen at this point in time, but at this point in time, it's not looking amazing. So I think that's about it from me. Anything you want to add, Bogues? Anyone on your list you haven't talked about?
No, mate. I don't have a fucking list.
Yeah. So, what's Kandos got in here? I don't know if there's anything else. I mean, I probably didn't. We got Avarillo, obviously. Dylan Walker's another interesting one at 5'8", Bogues at 306k. So he probably finds a centre spot. Could be in a high scoring Manly side at times, and you got guys like Turbo, DCE, and that.
Yeah, and if you're watching the replay of the show, put your suggestions in the comments.
Yeah, for sure. Milford as well once he comes back. I mean, you can't deny at 305k if he's playing on a contract year. This guy in the past has been Supercoach elite. Like, I just find it insane how he's gone the last 2 years based on how he has been in the past.
He's been fucking shit.
He's been so bad. It's like unbelievable. When he's back, it will be interesting to see what happens there. And then, Doc's also got Tracy down at 258k as a dual 5'8" halfback. So apparently he's been trained a bit at fullback. I don't know when this was written, Candos. I don't know if this was the latest one, but if Tracy finds a spot, definitely at 258k, he becomes really relevant really quickly, especially at fullback.
The Shockmaster is saying Lockie Lamb at 5'8", solid base.
I don't think the only problem with it, I don't think you can pick him at 5'8". I think he's only a half hooker. So we didn't mention him at I could be wrong actually. It could be 5'8" hooker. Is it 5'8" hooker? Someone correct me if I'm wrong there. But yeah, I agree. It's just the security is a bit of a concern there. I reckon Shock. It's just who knows what happened week to week with Trent Robinson if he doesn't like what he sees, and then yeah. But we're gonna have to pick someone there. So that's about it, Bogues.
Next week.
Look,
Next week is probably one of the bigger ones with second rowers and prop forwards.
Cool. So we'll have a look at the bookends, the big boys next week. We might have a guest appearance next week, Bogues. We'll see.
We are
happens
trying.
There. We might have a bit of a...
We have had a few people stick their hand up wanting to be a guest host. We're probably going to try and get the man formerly known as Gomez, Adrian, in to guest host, but we've also got Taylor Jane wants her own segment on the show. No, you're not keen?
Look, I don't know. Anyway, all I want to say is, look, if any of you are keen...
She has the picks. She had Bronson Zeri in her first draft of her team, so she obviously knows more about what's going on than us, mate, because I thought he was rubbed out for 4 years.
Look, Taylor, you're more than welcome. All for it. Anyone for that matter. If there's anyone out there who wants to get amongst us, reach out, let us know. You can't do any worse than bloody us each week. We're definitely no experts.
But we definitely want to get the doctor on at some stage as well.
Yeah, the doc, Benny, whoever it is. I mean, no pressure, but love to have you on and give a bit of input. Definitely don't want to hear monotone.
But Big Ted might be a pre-recorded show because of the time zone over there in New Zealand.
For sure. I've got another fella that might be interested, Bogues. I haven't talked about this in possibly doing a bit of a draft list, like a top 50 or something for draft picks as well. So, maybe something like that might be different. But yeah, so let us know. However you got to reach out to us, Bogues. Whether it's through yourself at Twitter, is it the BJ on GameDay show,
it's up on the screen.
Or just look my name up on Facebook and reach out, as a couple of people have.
And
jump in the group code.
Jump on the BJ and GameDay Facebook page, and remember to #BullyJosh.
Yeah, we keep peer pressuring him into return. Hopefully see his big head soon. Last call as well for the BJ Champions League draft. So if I haven't heard back from a couple of those people in the next, by tomorrow, we'll fill it out with the regs.
Yeah, we'll be giving that spot
because we've got to start.
We'll be giving that spot to
3 weeks.
Big Ted or Shane Foote.
Yeah, just whoever it'll be, we'll backfill that.
Or Adrian.
Yeah, so do that. We'll probably put out the all-in code in the next week, or next show maybe, or the week up maybe.
It's going to be a surprise. It'll be at the end of a show though, so make sure you tune in and watch to the end. We'll do a bit of sneaky marketing there if you want that chance to get in the all-in. Sweet.
Well, a bit of a long one tonight, but thank you everyone that tuned in. There was heaps of good input in the chats. Thank you guys. Appreciate that. Good chat tonight. Looking forward to the second row and front rowers next week. We'll do it all again. Maybe do a similar rating system. We'll see what happens, Bogues. But until then, guys, all the best with your teams, and we'll see you next week.
Well, and once again, I can't fucking work my computer.
Still fine.
Yeah, and have a good one, people. At BJ on GameDay Show on Twitter. Have a good one.
All right, we finish shows as well as we start them. That's
there we go.
Shockmaster wants his own segment. Kando wants.
You know what? I'm half tempted to give the Shockmaster his own segment just so I can play that clip. I don't know if you've seen the Shockmaster clip, Breno, but I'll show it to you. It's fucking hilarious. Anyways, people, yous have a good one, and we'll catch you next week.